Hello, folks. Welcome to the Rees Company. It's time for your movie of the week.
The Rees Company.
By the way, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the algorithm.
All right. People who really want to have a good time won't come to a slaughterhouse. And we've got entirely too many troublemakers here. Too many 40-year-old adolescents, felons, power drinkers, and trustees of modern chemistry. It's going to change. Be nice.
That ain't working.
I want you to be nice.
That ain't working.
And you'll both be nice.
So much as my wife was a giant. But,
I want you to be nice until it's time to not be nice.
No, I'm pretty sure that's the way you do it.
The Rees Company.
Crack open a tepid Genesee, watch the pictures as they travel through your neighbor's Wi-Fi. It's the Rees Company. I'm Steve Rees, the bull of American broadcasting, alongside the great Chris Morganti. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. My girlfriend was on television today, Steve. So
fantastic.
I have to, I don't want to be upstaged by an amateur.
Right.
So let's do a good show tonight.
Okay, well, fingers crossed. I'll do
Yeah.
my best. I'll bring my A game, and hopefully, I know you'll bring yours, as you always do. I guess we should just go right into it. Our movie of the week
Movie.
As we record this episode, there's a new Netflix docuseries called Waco, American Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells the story of the 1993 ATF raid on a Texas religious group. They call themselves the Branch Davidians. You remember this incident, correct?
I do. I was in school at the time, and I remember the newspaper the day after all this ended. It had David Koresh's picture in there, and the caption said, "Skull found in pieces," which we all had a good laugh over.
Well, the Branch Davidians, they were residents of a heavily fortified compound near Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
And they had a reputation for turning legal firearms into illegal firearms. There was allegations of child abuse, Chris?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, no, I mean, you said near Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
The actual name of it was, I don't know if it was the name of their compound or the name of the municipality that they lived in. Do you know what I'm
Mount
talking
Carmel, you mean?
Oh, see, I didn't know if it was Mount Carmel or Mount Caramel. Which
I was concerned about a similar misunderstanding, so
Yeah.
here's what I did, Chris. I looked it up.
okay. It's definitely Mount Carmel?
It's Mount Carmel, indeed.
See, we always called it Mount Caramel, where I grew up.
I believe that is how the complex was known locally and to its residents.
But it wasn't the name of the town. It was just what they called it.
Yeah, it was just a plot of land near 20 miles away from Waco.
Okay.
So all kinds of things are putting this group, this sect, on the radar of the federal government. The stockpiling of weapons, the alleged child abuse. So the leader of the Davidians, you mentioned his name.
David Koresh.
Yeah.
Not his real name. Real name, Vernon Howell. He renamed himself David as a biblical prophet.
Yes.
Yeah, and Koresh means something. I don't know.
Yes. And he claimed to be the Son of God. And he also spoke often of an unavoidable apocalyptic battle with federal authorities.
Yeah, sure.
So it seems like he must have read
You know
the
how
Bible.
the Bible is always going on and on about the FBI? You know,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Right. Now, one of the reasons why made-for-TV movies inspire such nostalgia is that they're very much of their time in a way that cinematic motion pictures are not.
Yeah.
Movies of the week, they were made to be disposable, shown once, maybe repeated again during summer, and never seen again. There was no secondary market for this material. There were no cable outlets.
There was no YouTube at the
no
time.
YouTube, no cable outlets to fill with content.
Yeah, so did you feel how I felt at some point? You're like, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Melrose Place. It had a very early 90s drama feel to it.
Yes.
Maybe LA Law.
Very much of
ilk.
its time production-wise, and also in terms of subject matter.
Yeah.
So, as a result, many of these were conceived to capitalize on a current controversial issue or a sensational recent news item. Now, our selection of the week is the ultimate example of the latter. It's called In the Line of Duty, Ambush in Waco, and it aired on NBC on May 23rd, 1993. Not only was this just over a month after the siege on the Branch Davidian compound ended, the standoff was still underway.
Yeah.
And they were already producing this film while the standoff was taking place.
Yeah, it aired after all this ended, but
Yes.
they were clearly making this while it was still going on.
Yeah. And by making this, we don't mean that the first draft of a script was submitted. We mean principal pig and photography was going on while the events were taking place in real time. So Ambush in Waco tells only the story of David Koresh's antics at the cult complex, leading up to the day when the ATF showed up on his doorstep. Now, the folks who were interviewed for the Netflix documentary on the Waco tragedy, they have the benefit of 3 decades of reflection and perspective to apply to their retelling of the events.
Sure.
The people who made Ambush in Waco were basically doing a rip and write from the Reuters line as more information on Koresh's past became available. So we're not here to pass judgment on how accurately the story was told based on what we've all since learned, only to look back at how it was portrayed in its own time. Ambush in Waco stars Tim Daly, and he's best known from the surprisingly long-running sitcom Wings.
Oh, okay.
And he plays David Koresh. Directed, by the way, by Dick Lowry. We've seen his work here before.
Okay.
He did the Jane Mansfield story, Project Alf, 2 films we've discussed on prior episodes.
We watched something called the Jane Mansfield story?
Yes. Lonnie Anderson, Arnold Schwarzenegger. So as Ambush in Waco begins, not the event, the motion picture, we see Koresh on a West Coast trip preaching to a congregation of his converts and potential new recruits. He tells them of the Waco settlement, referred to locally, as we said, as Mount Carmel. So there's a young couple, Adrian and Michelle, and they have a post-sermon caucus.
Was that one of the levels you got to at Candyland? Mount Carmel?
Mount Carmel, I believe so, yeah. Let's take a look. Adrian and Michelle.
And move to Waco, Texas? You know, I'd have to leave my job.
Which you hate, almost as much as I hated selling computers.
I know. Do you really believe he's a prophet?
I felt something. Didn't you? Look, the church doesn't want us. This is our chance for a ministry in music. It's what we've wanted. What have we got to lose?
Yeah. I equate moving to a distant compound with members of a religious movement. I equate that with listening to the voices in one's head.
Okay.
Everyone knows that if you hear voices in your head, there's something wrong. You're not mentally stable. Yet when people start to hear these voices, instead of getting help, they behead the pizza guy. Despite decades of hearing the phrase voices in your head being used to connote criminal insanity.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm concerned, these people have consciously opted into whatever fate befalls them.
Yeah.
And the same applies to becoming part of a religious commune. Everyone knows that that means you've joined a cult. Yet when the opportunity arises, there are always dozens of folks who will say, you know what? I'm going to roll the dice on this chap being the son of God.
Yeah.
So let's check in on the scene at Mount Carmel. Koresh, or as he's been known up to this point by his birth name, Chris, you mentioned it.
Vernon Howell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has his followers gathered.
Of the New England Howells. Lovey.
He's addressing his constituents, his laity.
Congregation?
Let's call it that. And he has a special announcement.
God has spoken to me. He has told me that Vernon Howell is dead. that I am the Lamb, and that my name is David, descended from the singer of Psalms, David Koresh, which means Cyrus, after the king who freed the Jews from Babylon. He told me that all women, not just the unmarried, the married too, all women now belong to the Lamb and shall bear the fruit of my seed. I was deeply troubled by his message, and I prayed on it, and I asked the Lord, why for must I do this? And he gave me a new light. He told me that just as Cyrus freed the Jews from the sins of the world, so must I bear the sins and the distractions of the flesh, so that all of you will be free to seek the kingdom of heaven.
Look, people, my hands are tied here. This is coming down from corporate. I don't know what to tell you. I see a lot of hands going up. I know you have a lot of questions. Look, I get it. This name change is going to be a big adjustment for all of us. But it's all right. Look, you can call me Dave. Maybe Davy Boy, switch it up a bit. It doesn't have to be formal. Okay. I see you still have more concerns, but not to worry. If you all work as a team, you can have most of my shirts remonogrammed by Friday tops. And then take a 3-day weekend if you want. I don't care. You're making way too big a deal out of this. Give Davy Boy a break over here. You're acting like you're the ones who are going to go stand in line down at the Social Security Administration this weekend. Jeez.
You don't think the name change was the big issue there when he announced he would be sleeping with all their wives?
Oh, not just their wives. He's also claimed as personal property their daughters as well.
Their daughters, yep.
Some as young as 12, 13.
Yeah. Although I will say in his defense, most people don't know that Jesus also had a great Metallica T-shirt collection. So,
well, a red flag is raised with the outside world, or Babylon, as it's referred to.
Yeah,
by
they call the outside world Babylon.
Yeah. A red flag is raised with Babylon during a routine delivery. Let's take a look.
You know, Steve, of all the packages you would want to be careful unloading from a truck, a box full of grenades would be, I would think, number one on the list. Oops-a-daisy.
And apparently, now you watched a lot more on this week than I did.
Yeah.
This actually occurred.
Yes. It's in, so in addition to watching this movie, I watched, they remade another miniseries in 2018. I believe it was on the A&E network or something like that. But it was much longer. It covered the whole standoff, whereas this one ends on the initial altercation. Where am I going with this? It was based on a book written by a man named David Thibodeau, who was one of the few people to stay there during the entire time and yet live.
He's in the Netflix documentary as well.
Yeah, so he escaped on the last day when it was all burning down. He was there the entire time. Yes, to answer your question, the whole grenade thing did happen.
It did happen. And these were just grenade shells. They were not active grenades. There was no incendiary or explosion device within them, from what I understand.
This comes up a lot where apparently it's legal to buy all this stuff in parts and then assemble it yourself. What you can't buy is a finished product. The same is true of automatic rifles, of hand grenades. So they were assembling the parts to make all this stuff. You know, like your local Roman Catholic Church does. You don't think it's odd that that's what you instead of Sunday school, you're building grenades? I don't know. We'll have more to say on this the type of people who get caught up in all this.
Yes. Now, Koresh and Adrian, the guy from earlier.
By the way, that was a bad example. There's a lot of other underhand things going on at your local Roman Catholic Church. They're just not probably assembling weapons.
Yeah, this assembling weapons typically not what goes on during Vacation Bible School.
Yeah, not since the Knight Templars were pounding out swords. I don't think that they've done that. But
so you remember Adrian from earlier?
Sure.
Yeah, he and Koresh,
who we saw in Project Alf.
yes, he was in Project Alf. He helped rescue Alf
I remember now.
from the alien task force.
Yeah. You know what? He looked familiar to me because he looks so much like Doug Stanhope.
Oh, yeah, there is a
After
similarity.
the whole time, I was like, oh, he just looks like Doug Stanhope. That's why I think I recognize him. But
I agree, there's a resemblance.
Yeah.
So Koresh and Adrian, they visit a pawn shop together. Let's take a look.
Hey, David, want to look at this? I'll take them both.
Suddenly, it's the Phil Spector story.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned up until now that he's the lead singer in a rock band.
Yeah, and I guess it's Christian rock, although I don't really get that from the lyrics.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all. They were singing. You remember the Lost Boys? Remember that movie?
Yeah.
And you remember the saxophone solo? I still believe. Right? That was in one of the documentaries that I saw. Definitely not a Christian rock song. But anyway, he's touring as a musician in addition to all the other nonsense he has going on. He has a touring band.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Adrian and his wife, Michelle, they start to have doubts about Koresh's claims to divinity.
No.
He's a false prophet. He has to be.
Yeah, but what if he's not?
You changing your mind? You want to join the House of David?
No. The thought of him touching me.
I'm sorry. I know you didn't want to come.
It's okay. It's just when I think of actually leaving, I'm scared. If he's the one, we're born in hell.
How can he be the one if he's having sex with little girls?
Yeah. Now, Steve, you probably ask yourself, how do people find themselves in this situation? How do they get duped into doing whatever this is, right? So I've asked our good friend here, Puppet Jamie Walters, to come and help me illustrate this point. How you doing, Jamie? Oh, pretty good. All right. Well, now for this, I'd like you to play the part of David Koresh. Do you think you can do that? Do you have a David Koresh voice? Yeah, I got a David Koresh voice. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Who knew he could do that, Steve?
Uncanny.
Yeah. All right. Great. All right. Well, you remember what we're gonna? You got the lines down? Yeah. I got the lines down. Okay. All right. Then you be David Koresh, and for this first one, I'll be a normal person who he's trying to recruit. All right. This is him trying to recruit a normal person. Okay. Hi, my name is David Koresh, and I talk to God, and He tells me I'm divine. Okay. Good luck with that. I'll see you later. Bye. Okay. Now, that's probably how most of his interactions went, right?
Right.
And then maybe 1 in 1,000, he comes across this guy, all right? Hi, my name is David Koresh, and I talk to God, and He sends me divine messages. Really? Tell me more. Well, the first thing He told me is, you should sell your home and move in with me and give me all your money. All right, well, first let me just say, I'm totally on board. Okay, and next, is your wife young and attractive? Yes, she is. Well, great. Then I'm going to be having sex with her. Wait, I'm sorry. So we're going to share my wife now? Oh, no. No, we won't be sharing her. I'll be the one having sex with her from now on. Oh. And do you have a daughter? Yes. How old is she? She's 12. Well, then I'll also be having sex with her. Well, I mean, this sounds like it's coming straight from God, so who am I to disagree? I'm all in. So, Steve, I think who would be mentally deficient people, people who have severe emotional problems, psychological problems, right? He's preying on weak people the same as any other criminal does.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, this whole thing later gets, later got conflated into overreach by federal agencies and excessive use of force and all that stuff I guess we'll get into later. But really what it comes down to is this guy was a criminal preying on weak-minded people. And I hope I did a good job of illustrating that.
You did a fine job illustrating that. Now, Adrian and his wife, Michelle, they decide to flee Mount Carmel. And I have to say, this seemed to be possible for anyone at any time.
They some of them had jobs, so they would go to their job every day. They could have left at any point.
Right. Because I haven't seen anything suggesting that anyone was held against his or her will, apart from the children who had no say.
Right.
Which makes these adults far more contemptible than their cohort in other cults.
I mean, if you trick a special needs person out of their candy bar, though, who do you blame?
So
that's kind of what the point I was trying to make.
Yes. So Adrian and Michelle, they head back to the West Coast, and Adrian finds work at a bookstore. Let's check in on him. Keep going.
So I hear you claim to be a prophet. No. I claim you're not the only one God talks to.
Since when does God talk to Judas?
Look, Vernon.
David?
Whatever your name is, you're a false prophet.
Then why are you so nervous? If I'm a man like any other, then what have you got to fear?
Because
of what?
you're out of control.
Oh, how's that?
Libby, for one thing, and Betsy. That's rape.
You think young girls aren't ready for sex? When I first slept with Libby, it was like hunting her soul. I could feel her little heart beating under my hand. Once she started, man, she couldn't get enough.
All right, now he's kind of winning me over. I'm sorry, what? I'm joking.
But you see what we're talking about, folks. If you leave other cults, you're kept apart from loved ones still inside. There's sometimes career sabotage. A smear campaign may be launched.
Yeah.
If you left Mount Carmel, you got a stern talking to and a criminal confession in the sci-fi section of the Century City Barnes & Noble. Now, far be it from me to tell another man how to run his new religious movement. But by this telling, Koresh was really big on the whole claiming to be the son of God aspect, but really lax when it came to using fear and intimidation to exert control over his flock. His technique here is like a heckler retort come to life. He'll literally go down to where you work and knock the broom out of your hand and then go back to Waco. Well, he said his piece. Bob's your uncle. Now, all this time, there's been a B story following the exploits of agents from the Bureau of ATF.
Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Yeah, that's what it stood for at the time.
Oh.
Now, for some reason, somehow, it stands for alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives.
Well, I'm glad they cleared that up. I think it was after that guy dropped that box of grenades.
So this ATF group is led by Kevin Arnold's dad, and he meets with Adrian, who is getting impatient with the ATF's hesitation to make a move on Koresh.
You just don't get it, do you?
Look, I know you're anxious, but we do have some constraints. We have to legally establish probable cause before we can justify a search warrant. Now, we're moving as fast as we can.
Not fast enough. I've told the sheriff, the newspapers, you,
The newspapers.
and Waco. They're doing a series on it.
Oh, great.
Nobody understands. You're going to take on a man who believes he's Jesus Christ.
We understand that.
No, you don't! He wants to take you on. See, you're the guys that he's been preaching are going to come and martyr everyone in the final battle, the one he's preparing for. And every day you wait, the more prepared he gets. And the more dangerous.
Yeah. So the agents assigned to the Koresh case, they hold a meeting to discuss the evidence against Koresh and his associates, and they work together to devise a game plan.
Yeah. No, these characters are. Or we might need to go. These characters are mostly are fictionalized composites of people in this movie.
Yeah.
But somebody, I don't know if this character actually existed or talked to the press, but there was a story that ran in the paper that came about. The FBI or the ATF, I'm sorry, was telling them, please don't run this story until we get our ducks in a row, because we don't want to put them on their guard. So this is an important part of it, where this story, the newspaper eventually got tired. They're like, well, if you guys aren't doing anything, we're going to run the story. They ran the story. So now the Branch Davidians, the David Koresh people, they knew that there was a raid in the works.
It was imminent, yeah.
They were alerted by the newspaper before it ever happened.
Yeah.
He's accumulated considerable amounts of potassium nitrate, aluminum powder, and magnesium. In the proper proportion, that's an explosive and illegal. Also, those grenade hulls are easily modified with parts he has. Add black powder, which he's bought 40 pounds of in the past year, working grenades.
Plus, a 50 caliber anti-tank rifle, grenade launchers, silencers, body armor, night vision equipment, and radio-controlled airplanes to carry explosives.
I'd say that gives us probable cause, Paul.
Agreed.
So, all we have to do now is serve the warrant.
What about picking him up at a gun show?
Nah, let's not do that.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? He goes jogging around the block every morning. Well, why don't we just pick him up? No.
No. Hey, hey, guys. Everybody listening? Everybody ready? I have a better idea.
Do you think Slim Pickens from Blazing Saddles was there? And he said he convinced him to do a number 10? That's where we go in. A whomping and a whooping. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Damn it, dumb bastard.
All right. So,
Is that the last scene?
no, we have a couple more.
Okay.
After a ceasefire is called, a negotiator...
By the way, what really happened? The ATF agents ran out of ammo. That's why there was a ceasefire. The Branch Davidians, they had plenty of ammo left. Yeah.
So they called for a ceasefire, and a government negotiator...
That wasn't a joke. That's what really happened.
No, I understand.
All right.
A government negotiator tries to reason with Koresh. Let's see how that works out.
Now, how are we going to resolve this?
You need to walk out and give up. We're not leaving.
No, that won't do. This won't be all over until I'm crucified and dead. But if you can solve the mysteries of Revelations, the mysteries of the seven seals, we'll come out.
You know, guys, we could be here for a long time.
Or a few more minutes. Who knows? Nobody acting in this scene does. Maybe when whatever happens, they can slap a voiceover at the end of, oh, here we go.
Were killed in the line of duty. On April 19th, 1993, after 51 days of standoff with federal agents, the tragedy of Mount Carmel continued. David Koresh and at least 71 of his followers died by fire, as he had willed. The confirmed dead included 17 children.
Phil Hartman?
Wait, can we let it roll a little bit longer? Because the next part, I think, is...
That's actual footage, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's actual. Well, no, yeah, they didn't have the budget to recreate this. But they, at some point soon, they show the 4 agents who died, federal agents.
We just missed that.
Oh, we missed it. Okay, I'm sorry. But here's the thing. You can stop it, Jim. But the reason I wanted to show it is because they used the photos of the actors.
Yeah,
instead of the
that
real
was a
people.
bizarre move.
Usually they use the real people at the end of the movie like that.
Yeah.
They showed the actors. Like,
And all those actors, was everybody in that round table scene with the ATF agents discussing their game plan?
Yeah.
Apart from Kevin Arnold's dad.
yeah, you never
Robert
really
Williams,
saw him until that one
26.
scene. So it's not like you're like,
Killed
oh yeah,
in the
that
line
guy
of duty.
from that scene.
On April 19th, 19...
It was a weird choice. Also, I wanted to point out when David Koresh challenged them to solve the Book of Revelations, and then he would come out. Isn't that what we just watched there?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know who I think would have been handy in that situation, Steve, is Roman Polanski, because he also likes having sex with 12-year-old girls, and so I feel like he could relate to him. And he made a whole bunch of films about Revelations and stuff. So, like, I think they could have. Maybe that's who they needed. Negotiating with David Koresh was someone like that.
That was all this unpleasantness could have been avoided.
Yeah, he's like, hey, yeah, I get it, man. She's 12. Yeah, I get it. You know. Also, have you read? I don't even know how Bible verses work. 3:16. That's the only one I know.
Anything else you'd like to say about this? I don't think we should rate this because it's not really rateable because it was such a rush job.
I would say this was on YouTube. I found out about the Netflix thing, the documentary. I don't have Netflix, but I remembered watching this other miniseries in 2018, and it turns out I have Showtime. I don't know, apparently. So that was on Showtime, so I went back and watched that 2018 miniseries. That was a lot better than this. So if you have the option, watch the 2018 one. Yeah, this is what it was. They rushed something out in a couple weeks, couple months.
It was written in 10 days.
10 days, yeah. And I gotta say, the guy who played David Koresh was great, though. He probably had zero time to learn that part, but he did a good job with it. As did most people in this, really. There was Kitty from the 70s show, Deborah Jo Rupp, I think her name is.
Yeah.
She was in it. Jerry Ryan, who was in Star Trek for a long time, she was in it. Like, they had a cast of people who would later go on to become famous. They weren't at the time, I guess, but yeah, we don't have to rate it, but I don't think it was bad for what it was. You know,
right. Now, the man who wrote this, his name is Phil Penningworth, and he later came to believe that his characterization of Koresh and the Davidians was unfair, because all he had to work with during the 10 days of writing the script were press reviews, interviews with ex-members of the church, and the official word of the U.S. government, none of which painted a sympathetic or remotely favorable view of the people within the compound. So he subsequently wrote a stage play called The Sinful Messiah to tell the story from Koresh's point of view. But as far as I could find, he was unable to have it produced. Now, if I'm mistaken with that, I'm sure we'll be hearing from him. But I just wanted his perspective to be part of this show.
Well, I will say that the 2018 miniseries, which I just talked about, was more sympathetic and tried to portray a more well-rounded picture of Koresh and the people there. I didn't buy it. A couple of scenes from this movie that we didn't see, he's yelling at them like he's an angry dad, or he's scolding them kind of.
Right.
He's kind of abusive. He makes some kid kneel in a shack full of rats, and that was his son. I don't know.
And that's punishment for not coming over to him quickly enough when he calls him over during dinner, I believe.
Yeah. Most circles you call that an abusive dad, but whatever. And I don't really have any sympathy for a sympathetic portrayal of David Koresh. I don't. I'm sorry. See, and I thought we would disagree on this because I remember 5 years ago when I watched this the first time, I thought you and I got into an argument about it, but maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe your view has changed over the years. I don't know.
Perhaps. It would be interesting if we could find that episode.
It wasn't an episode. It was at Jack's.
Oh. Well, I might have just been being an ass. That's always a possibility, Chris.
I always forget that you're often being an ass.
All right. Well, in that case, anything we didn't talk about, you might want to talk about.
Pretty sure we were having a legit conversation.
Okay. We probably were. I don't recall it.
You felt that the FBI had been a little bit heavy-handed, I think, which is a fair point of view.
Especially when, and you mentioned it earlier, they could have arrested him during the walk.
Yeah.
During his daily stroll.
Yeah. At the same time, if the police show up with a warrant for my arrest and I just start shooting at them,
you get what's coming to you.
Yeah, that's not kosher.
It's not on, man.
Yeah.
It's not on. Bang, out of order. All right.
Very unswinging, as Sir Paul would say.
Well, in that case,
here's another thing. I mentioned in the beginning of this broadcast, David Koresh, skull found in pieces. He met his end not in a fiery death like all of his followers did. He was shot in the head with a gun, either self-inflicted or by one of his followers, because there was the ATF had the initial shootout, right? After that, the FBI was handling it. There was no exchange of gunfire on the day that all that happened, when all this ended, right? So he was either shot by himself, suicide, or by one of his followers. Either way you look at that, because they say, like, oh, they didn't have a suicide plan. That doesn't square with him either shooting himself, or if they shot him, then that means they disagreed with him and overpowered him and shot him, right? Well, what would they disagree with him on? The fact that they didn't all want to burn to death? I feel like David Koresh wanted to die in that whole situation.
Of course.
He's the one who set all those fires. Yeah, I don't know. I think we've done our point that this guy is no good.
And he also didn't have the courage to burn down with the rest of them.
Right. Yep. And on that note,
all right, Oscar Bibi.
Thank you for tuning in for another fun episode of the Rees Company.
All right, we did it. Good night.